You're useless to me now. Those 5 words destroyed Elena Brooks' entire world. At 30 years old, she found herself abandoned on the coldest night of the year, thrown out like garbage the moment her husband learned she couldn't give him children. No money, no family, nowhere to go. Just divorce papers and a thin dress in a violent snowstorm. She should have frozen to death in that bus shelter. Instead, a billionaire's car stopped in the snow, and 3 children pressed their faces against the window, staring at the broken woman their father was about to save. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this journey goes. The bus shelter offered almost no protection from the wind. Elena Brooks sat on the frozen metal bench, her entire body shaking so violently she thought her bones might crack. The thin cotton dress she wore, the same one she'd put on that morning when her life still made sense, was already soaked through. Ice crystals formed in her hair. Her fingers had gone numb 20 minutes ago. She stared at the divorce papers clutched in her red, raw hands. The ink was running in the snow. This can't be real. But it was real. Everything that happened in the last 6 hours was brutally, horrifically real. The doctor's appointment, the sympathetic face, the devastating diagnosis. I'm sorry, Mrs. Brooks. The scarring is too severe. Natural conception isn't possible. She'd driven home in a daze, rehearsing how to tell her husband. They'd been trying for 2 years. David had been getting frustrated, making comments about her body, her stress levels, her failure to give him what he wanted. But she'd convinced herself he loved her, that they'd figure it out together. She was wrong. David was waiting when she got home. He already knew. The clinic called to confirm the appointment, he said flatly, not even looking up from his phone. I'm listed as your emergency contact. Elena's throat closed. David, Pack a bag. She stood frozen in their living room, her living room, she'd thought, the home they'd built together, unable to process what was happening. What? Pack. A bag. He finally looked at her and his eyes were cold, empty, like she was a stranger. You have 20 minutes. David, please, we can talk about this. Talk about what? He stood, towering over her. Talk about adoption, surrogacy, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because you're defective? The word hit her like a physical blow. Defective. I didn't choose this, she whispered. The accident wasn't my fault. I don't care whose fault it was. David grabbed his car keys. I want children, Elena. Real children. My children. Not some random kid that isn't mine. So what, you're just leaving me? No. He pulled folded papers from his jacket. You're leaving. This is my house. I paid for it. My name's on the deed. She stared at the papers he shoved into her hands. Divorce papers. Already filed. You already filed? This morning, after the clinic called. He checked his watch like he was bored. Judge Morgan owed me a favor. It's done. Elena couldn't breathe. You divorced me in 6 hours? I made a decision. I'm not wasting more time on someone useless. There it was. Useless. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to make him see her as a human being instead of a broken appliance he was returning to the store. But she couldn't, because part of her believed him. 20 minutes later, she was standing on the front porch with a small duffel bag containing whatever she'd frantically grabbed. David didn't say goodbye. He just closed the door, locked it, changed his whole life in an afternoon. Elena called her sister first. I can't, Jennifer said immediately. Marcus already said no. You know how he is about guests. Jen, I have nowhere to go. What about Mom? Mom's in Arizona with Frank. She made it clear I'm not welcome there. Silence. Look, Elle, I'm sorry about what happened, but you have to understand, this is really awkward timing. We're hosting Marcus's parents this week, and Elena hung up. She tried 2 friends. One didn't answer. The other said her roommate wouldn't allow it. By the time the sun set, Elena was sitting at a coffee shop with $8 in her checking account and a dead phone battery. David had already frozen their joint account. She had 1 credit card in her name, maxed out from the fertility treatments. The snowstorm started at 7. By 8, the coffee shop was closing. Elena walked outside into a wall of white. She had no car. David kept it. No money, no family willing to help. The homeless shelters downtown were 40-minute walks away. and she'd already called, all full because of the storm. So she found a bus shelter and sat down. That's where she was now, watching her breath fog in the air, feeling her body slowly shutting down from the cold, wondering if this was how it ended. Headlights cut through the snow. Elena barely noticed. Cars had been passing for the last hour. Nobody stopped. Why would they? She was just another homeless person on a street corner, but this car slowed, then stopped. Elena looked up through frozen eyelashes. A black SUV idled at the curb, exhaust billowing in the frigid air. Expensive, the kind of vehicle that costs more than most people's houses. The back door opened. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, leaned out. "Daddy, she's freezing." "Sophie, get back inside." "No, look at her." A man's voice, deep, tired. "Sophie, we can't just... She's gonna die." The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out into the storm. Elena tried to focus, but everything was blurry. She could make out broad shoulders, dark hair dusted with snow, an expensive coat. He approached slowly, hands visible, like she was a wounded animal. "Ma'am?" She didn't respond. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Elena managed a nod. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Do you have somewhere to go?" She shook her head again. The man crouched in front of her, and she finally saw his face. Sharp features, gray eyes, maybe early 30s, the kind of handsome that came with money and personal trainers and stylists. "I'm Mason," he said quietly. "Those are my kids in the car. We're headed home, and it's warm there. Will you come with us?" Elena's brain tried to process the offer. Stranger, car, kids. This is how people disappear. "No," she whispered. "Okay." Mason didn't push. "Can I call someone for you? Family? Friends?" "No one." His expression shifted. Not pity. Something else. Understanding. "The shelters are full," he said. "And this storm's getting worse. Weather service says -15 with wind chill." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're hypothermic." "I said I'm fine." Mason stood, ran a hand through his hair, looked back at his SUV where 3 small faces were pressed against the windows. "Daddy!" the little girl yelled. "You can't just leave her!" He closed his eyes. When he opened them, his jaw was set. "Here's what's going to happen," Mason said firmly. "You're going to get in my car. We're going to my house. You're going to get warm, eat something, and sleep somewhere safe. Tomorrow morning, if you want to leave, I'll drive you anywhere in the city. No questions. But I'm not leaving you here to freeze to death while my children watch. You don't know me." "I don't need to." "I could be dangerous. You can barely stand." Elena tried to push herself up to prove him wrong. Her legs buckled. Mason caught her before she hit the concrete. "I've got you," he said quietly. And then she was moving, being guided to the SUV. The door opened and warm air rushed out. "Move over, Sophie," Mason instructed. The little girl scrambled to make room. Mason helped Elena inside. The door closed. Heat surrounded her. 3 children stared. The little girl, Sophie, immediately wrapped a blanket around Elena's shoulders. "You're okay now," Sophie said seriously. "Our daddy helps people. He helped us too." "Sophie," an older boy warned, maybe 10. "Don't." "What?" "It's true. We're not supposed to tell strangers our business." "She's not a stranger. Daddy brought her home." Mason climbed back into the driver's seat. "Everyone buckled?" A chorus of yeses. The SUV pulled away from the curb. Elena sat in stunned silence, wedged between Sophie and a quiet teenage girl who hadn't said a word. "I'm Sophie," the little girl announced. "That's Ethan, and that's Mara. Mara doesn't talk much. She's 14. Ethan's 10. I'm 6. How old are you?" "Sophie," Mason said from the front. "Give her some space." "I'm just being friendly." "I know, but she's had a rough night." Sophie considered this, then leaned against Elena's arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "Rough nights get better." Something cracked in Elena's chest. She turned her face to the window so the children wouldn't see her cry. The drive took 15 minutes. The neighborhood changed gradually, from the sketchy downtown area to tree-lined streets to actual gates with security guards. Mason waved at the guard. The SUV turned onto a private drive. Even through the snow, Elena could see the house was massive. Of course it is. The garage door opened automatically. They parked between a Tesla and a vintage Mercedes. Home, Mason announced. The kids piled out. Elena sat frozen. I shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Mason turned in his seat. Where should you be? I don't know. Then here's as good as anywhere. You don't understand. You're right, I don't. Mason's voice was gentle. But I know what it looks like when someone's got nowhere to go. And I know my kids would never forgive me if I left you outside, so please, just come inside. Elena looked at his hand, extended toward her. She thought about the cold, the bus shelter, the divorce papers turning to pulp in the snow. David's voice. Useless. She took Mason's hand. Inside, the house was warm, too warm. Elena stood dripping in the massive entryway, feeling like an intruder. Mara, can you show our guest to the downstairs bathroom? Mason asked. Help her find some dry clothes? The teenage girl nodded silently and gestured for Elena to follow. They walked through a kitchen that could have been in a magazine, down a hallway lined with family photos, into a bathroom bigger than Elena's old bedroom. Mara opened a closet and pulled out sweatpants and a sweater. These were my mom's, she said quietly. First words Elena had heard her speak. They'll fit. Then she left. Elena stood alone in the bathroom. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the reflection. Hollow eyes, blue lips, hair plastered to her skull. What am I doing here? But she stripped off the wet dress, put on the dead woman's clothes. They fit perfectly. When she emerged, Sophie was waiting in the hallway. Daddy made soup, she announced. Come on. She grabbed Elena's hand and pulled her toward the kitchen. The whole family was there. Mason stood at the stove, ladling soup into bowls. Ethan was setting the table. Mara was pouring water into glasses. It looked like a scene from a different life. Sit, Mason said, gesturing to a chair. Elena sat. Sophie climbed into the chair next to her. Do you like chicken noodle? Sophie asked. It's from a can, but Daddy makes it fancy. Fancy is a strong word, Mason said, setting a bowl in front of Elena. Steam rose. Elena's hand shook as she picked up the spoon. She took a sip. It was the best thing she'd ever tasted, or maybe she was just starving. So, Mason said carefully, sitting down with his own bowl. I'm Mason Carter. These are my kids. You've met Sophie, that's Ethan, and Mara. Elena swallowed. Elena Brooks. Nice to meet you, Elena. Daddy, Sophie said. Can Elena stay for breakfast too? Sophie, what? She should stay. It's still snowing. Mason looked at Elena. You're welcome to stay, he said. We have guest rooms. You can stay as long as you need. I can't. Yes, you can. You don't know anything about me. I know you needed help. Mason's gray eyes were steady. That's enough. Elena felt tears building again. Why are you doing this? Because someone did it for me once. Mason glanced at his kids. When I needed it most. Ethan was watching her carefully. Are you running away from someone? He asked bluntly. Ethan, Mason warned. What? You always say we should ask direct questions. Not like that. But Elena shook her head. It's okay. She met Ethan's eyes. I'm not running. I was left behind. Understanding flickered across the boy's face. Oh, he said quietly. Yeah. Mara spoke up suddenly. You can stay in the room next to mine, she said. It has a lock. In case you need space. The kindness was too much. Elena put down her spoon. I don't understand why you're all being so nice to me. Sophie tilted her head. Why wouldn't we be? You don't know me. So? Daddy didn't know us either, but he still picked us. Sophie, Mason said gently. That's different. No, it's not. Sophie turned to Elena. We were all in bad places before Daddy found us. Ethan was in a group home. Mara was in the hospital. I was in a really loud place with too many people and not enough food. But Daddy came and got us. And now we're a family. Elena stared at Mason. You adopted all three of them? Yes. Why? Mason was quiet for a long moment. Because they needed a home, he finally said, and I needed them. What about your wife? The question slipped out before Elena could stop it. Pain flickered across Mason's face. She died, Mara said flatly. 4 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. Mara's voice was hard. You didn't kill her. An uncomfortable silence fell. Mason cleared his throat. Mara. What? I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. The teenage girl stood abruptly. I have homework. She left. Ethan watched her go. She's having a bad week, he explained to Elena. The anniversary is coming up. The anniversary? Of when our mom died. Ethan said it matter-of-factly. Mara takes it harder than the rest of us. Sophie nodded seriously. Mara knew Mom the longest. She was 10 when it happened. I was only 2. I don't really remember. Mason's jaw tightened. Okay, he said quietly. That's enough for tonight. But, Sophie, enough. The little girl's face fell. Elena recognized that look. The desperate need to fill silence with words. To prove you were useful. Wanted. I think your soup is getting cold, Elena said gently to Sophie. Sophie looked down at her bowl. Oh, yeah. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Ethan spoke. So, where did you come from? Ethan, Mason started. It's fine, Elena said. I was married until today. My husband divorced me this afternoon and kicked me out. That's messed up, Ethan said. Ethan? What? It is. He's not wrong, Elena said quietly. Sophie frowned. Why did he divorce you? Sophie, that's none of your business. Because I can't have children, Elena said. The words hung in the air. Mason's expression changed. He divorced you because I'm infertile, yes. Elena's voice was flat. Natural conception isn't possible. I found out today. He found out today, and he decided I was useless. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Ethan said. Ethan, no, Dad, seriously. That's stupid. Like, really stupid. Sophie was staring at Elena with wide eyes. But you're not useless. Your husband sounds like a jerk, Ethan added. Ethan, language. I said jerk, not, I know what you said. Elena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. He is kind of a jerk, she admitted. Kind of? Ethan snorted. He's a total... Ethan. What? Mason pinched the bridge of his nose. Can we please have one meal without you editorializing? I don't know what that means. It means stop talking. You're the one who said I should express my opinions. I'm regretting that now. Sophie giggled. Even Elena felt herself relaxing slightly. These people were strange, chaotic, nothing like the cold, perfect family dinners she'd had with David. After dinner, Mason showed Elena to the guest room. It was beautiful, cream-colored walls, a bed with too many pillows, an attached bathroom with fluffy towels. There are clothes in the closet, Mason said. Caroline's, my wife's. We're about the same size, I think. Take whatever you need. I can't. Please. Mason's voice was tired. Just let me help. Elena nodded. Mason turned to leave, then paused. Elena? Yes? What happened to you today? What your husband did? That's not okay. I know. No, I mean, Mason struggled for words. You're not useless, or defective, or any of the things I'm sure he said. You're a person going through something devastating, and you deserved better. Elena's throat closed. You don't know me. I don't need to. Mason met her eyes. I know enough. He left. Elena stood alone in the beautiful room, and finally let herself break. She cried for an hour. For her marriage, her body, her stupid, desperate hope that David had ever really loved her. When she finally crawled into bed exhausted, she heard soft voices in the hallway. Is she okay? Sophie's whisper. She will be, Mason's voice. Give her time. Can she stay? We'll see. I like her, Daddy. I know. She's sad like Mara was. Silence. Yeah, Mason said quietly. She is. But Mara got better. Because you helped her. Mara's still working on getting better, sweetheart. But she's better than before. Yes. So Elena will get better too, right? Another pause. I hope so, Mason said. Elena pressed her face into the pillow. She'd expected to lie awake all night. Instead, she fell into the deepest sleep she'd had in months. When she woke, pale winter sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it crashed back. Everything. Elena sat up slowly. She was still in the borrowed clothes, still in a stranger's house, still divorced, still broken, but alive. She got up and opened the bedroom door. The house was quiet. She followed the smell of coffee to the kitchen. Mason was there, already dressed in a suit, typing on a laptop. He looked up when she entered. Morning. Morning. Elena hovered in the doorway. I should probably go. Where? I don't know. Somewhere. Mason closed his laptop. The storm's still bad. Roads are a mess. And honestly, he studied her. You look like you need another day. I can't just stay here. Why not? Because I'm a stranger. You were a stranger yesterday. Today you're Elena who borrowed my late wife's clothes and made Sophie laugh at dinner. Elena didn't know what to say. Mason poured her coffee. Look, he said carefully, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but I have 3 kids who are already asking if you're staying, and I know what it's like to have nowhere to go. So here's what I'm offering. Stay for a few days. Figure out your next move. No pressure. No expectations. Why would you do that? Because I can. Mason handed her the coffee. And because someone should. Elena took the mug. Her hands were still shaking. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. Mason smiled slightly. You haven't met the kids when they're fully awake. As if on cue, thundering footsteps echoed from upstairs. Sophie burst into the kitchen. Elena, you're still here. Good morning, Sophie. Are you staying? Daddy said maybe you're staying. Are you? Please say yes. Mason sighed. Sophie, we talked about this. I know, but give her space. Sophie deflated slightly, but she climbed onto the chair next to Elena anyway. I'm glad you didn't leave, she said quietly. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Me too, she heard herself say. And for the first time in 24 hours, she meant it. 3 days turned into a week. Elena kept telling herself she'd leave tomorrow, find a job, find an apartment, find some way to restart her life that didn't involve living in a billionaire's guest room like a charity case. But every morning, Sophie would knock on her door with that hopeful smile, asking if Elena wanted pancakes. And every evening, Mason would casually mention that the roads were still bad, or that he'd appreciate help with homework, or that Mara had actually asked where Elena was. So she stayed. The house developed a rhythm. Mason left early for his office downtown. The kids had online classes most days because of the lingering winter weather. Elena found herself naturally filling the gaps, making lunch, helping Ethan with his math homework, sitting quietly in Mara's room while the teenager did her own thing. She tried not to get attached. She failed completely. On the 8th day, Elena woke to raised voices downstairs. She pulled on a robe and crept to the top of the stairs. I don't want to go! Mara's voice, angry, desperate. You have to. Mason sounded exhausted. It's not optional. Why? So some therapist can pretend to care about my feelings for an hour? Dr. Martinez does care. She gets paid to care. That's different. Mara. I'm not going. A door slammed. Silence. Elena found Mason in the kitchen, head in his hands. Sorry, he said without looking up. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. Elena poured herself coffee. Is she okay? Define okay? Mason rubbed his face. She's supposed to have therapy this afternoon. She's been refusing to go for 2 weeks. Why? Because the anniversary of Caroline's death is in 3 days, and Mara's convinced that if she doesn't talk about it, she won't have to feel it. Elena sat down across from him. That's not how grief works. I know that. You know that. Mara's 14 and thinks she can logic her way out of emotions. Sounds familiar. Mason glanced up. Yeah? Elena shrugged. I spent 6 months after my accident convincing myself I was fine, That infertility was just a medical fact, not something to grieve, that I could just move on. How'd that work out? Terribly. Elena wrapped her hands around her mug. Turns out you can't logic away loss. Tell that to my daughter. Maybe I will. Mason's eyebrows rose. Seriously? Why not? Worst case, she tells me to leave her alone. She might. Then I'll leave her alone. Elena stood. Where is she? Her room. Third door on the left upstairs. Elena climbed the stairs slowly. She knocked on Mara's door. Go away, Dad. Not your dad. Silence. Then, come in. Elena opened the door. Mara's room was exactly what you'd expect from a grieving 14-year-old. Dark walls, banned posters, clothes everywhere, a desk covered in art supplies and half-finished sketches. Mara sat on her bed, knees pulled to her chest. He sent you to convince me to go to therapy. Nope. Elena leaned against the doorframe. I came because I heard you yelling and wanted to make sure you're okay. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Mara's jaw tightened. What do you want me to say? That I'm sad? That I miss my mom? That therapy doesn't actually help because talking about her doesn't bring her back? No. Elena moved further into the room. I want you to say whatever you actually feel. I just did. Okay. Mara blinked. That's it? No lecture about how I should go anyway? Not my place. Dad would lecture me. I'm not your dad? Exactly. So why do you care? Elena considered the question. Because I know what it's like to lose something, she said finally, and to have everyone tell you how you're supposed to feel about it. Mara's expression shifted slightly. Your husband. Among other things. Did people tell you to go to therapy? Constantly. Did you go? Eventually. Did it help? Elena thought about the 6 sessions she'd done before David pulled the plug, claiming it was too expensive. Sometimes, she admitted, when I actually let it. Mara picked at her blanket. What if I don't want to let it help? Then it won't. So I shouldn't go. I didn't say that. Elena sat on the floor back against the wall. I said it won't help if you don't let it, but you might be surprised what happens when you stop fighting so hard. Fighting what? The feeling. Mara looked away. If I let myself feel it, I won't stop. Yeah, Elena said quietly. You will. How do you know? Because you have to. Because life keeps going whether you're ready or not. Because eventually you get tired of carrying it alone. Mara's eyes were wet. I don't want to cry in front of some stranger. Dr. Martinez isn't a stranger. Your dad said you've been seeing her for 2 years. She's still not family. Neither am I. Mara laughed bitterly. Yeah, but you get it. Maybe Dr. Martinez gets it too. She didn't lose her mom when she was 10. No, but she lost someone. Everyone has. Mara was quiet for a long moment. I hate that she's gone, she whispered finally. I hate that Sophie barely remembers her. I hate that Ethan pretends he's fine. I hate that Dad tries so hard to be both parents, and it's not enough. And I hate that I can't even remember what her voice sounded like anymore. Elena's throat closed. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Nobody can fix it. No, they can't. Mara wiped her eyes roughly. If I go to therapy, will you come with me? Elena blinked. What? Not into the session, just in the car. So Dad doesn't try to talk to me about feelings the whole drive. Mara, please. Something in the girl's voice broke Elena's heart. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll come. Mara nodded. Thanks. 2 hours later, Elena found herself in the back of Mason's SUV with Mara, heading across town to Dr. Martinez's office. Mason kept glancing in the rearview mirror, clearly surprised his daughter had actually gotten in the car. You okay back there? He asked. Fine, Mara muttered. Elena, thank you for... Don't, Elena said quietly. It's fine. They pulled up to a small office building. Mara unbuckled. You'll be here when I get out? We'll be here, Mason promised. Mara nodded and disappeared inside. Mason turned to look at Elena. What did you say to her? Nothing much. Elena, Let her be honest. Mason studied her face. You're good with them, he said quietly. The kids. Elena looked away. I'm not doing anything special. You're doing more than you think. I'm just trying to be helpful. Why? The question caught her off guard. What? Why are you trying so hard to be helpful? Mason's voice was gentle. You're a guest here. You don't owe us anything. I know that. So why? Elena didn't have a good answer, or maybe she did, and didn't want to say it out loud, because being useful meant being wanted. Because if she was helping, she wasn't just taking up space. Because David's voice still echoed in her head, and she needed to prove him wrong. I like your kids, she said instead. They're good people. They like you too. Sophie likes everyone? Sophie's picky about who she attaches to. Mason turned back to face the windshield. She's decided you're safe. I don't know if that's true. It is. Mason paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. What are you planning to do? Long term? There it was. The question Elena had been avoiding. I don't know, she admitted. Find a job, I guess. Save money. Get my own place. What kind of job? Whatever I can get. I have a degree in marketing, but I haven't worked in 4 years. David wanted me home. Mason's jaw tightened at the mention of her ex-husband. You could work from here, he said carefully, while you figure things out. Mason, I'm serious. The kids are doing better with you around, and honestly, he looked at her, I could use the help. You have a housekeeper and a chef who comes 3 times a week. I'm not talking about housekeeping. Mason ran a hand through his hair. I'm talking about someone who actually cares about them as people, who notices when Mara's struggling or when Ethan's hiding something or when Sophie's anxious. You notice those things. When I'm here, which isn't enough. Frustration leaked into his voice. I'm trying to run a company and raise 3 kids who've all been through trauma. Something's always falling through the cracks. Elena didn't know what to say. Think about it, Mason said. No pressure, but the offer's there. Before Elena could respond, Mara emerged from the building. She looked exhausted, but slightly lighter. She climbed back into the SUV. How'd it go? Mason asked carefully. Fine. Just fine? Dad, it was fine. Mason wisely dropped it. On the drive home, Elena's phone buzzed. She'd finally charged it the day before. The screen showed 17 missed calls from David, and 1 text message. We need to talk about the settlement. Elena's stomach dropped. You okay? Mason asked, eyes on the road. Yeah, just my ex. What does he want? Money, probably. Mason's expression darkened. You don't have to give him anything. The divorce is already filed. I signed the papers. Signed under duress doesn't count. I don't have money for a lawyer. I do. Elena stared at him. What? I have lawyers, good ones. They can review the settlement. Make sure you're not getting screwed. Mason, I can't ask you to… You're not asking. I'm offering. Why would you do that? Mason pulled into the driveway, put the car in park, turned to face her. Because you deserve better than whatever he's trying to pull, he said flatly. And because I can help, so let me. Elena felt tears building. I don't know how to accept this much help. Start by saying yes. She took a shaky breath. Yes. Good. Mason unbuckled. I'll make some calls tomorrow. Inside, Sophie was waiting with Ethan. Elena, we made cookies. You made cookies, Ethan corrected. I supervised. Same thing. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour everywhere. Chocolate chips scattered across the counter. The cookies themselves looked interesting. They're supposed to be circles, Sophie explained, but they kind of melted together. They look perfect, Elena said. You're just saying that. I'm saying they look like you made them with love, Sophie beamed. Try one. Elena took a bite of what could generously be called a cookie. It was simultaneously undercooked and burnt. Delicious, she lied. Ethan snorted. You're a terrible liar. Ethan! Sophie looked devastated. What? They're bad. We both know they're bad. You said they were good. I said they were edible. That's different. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Elena crouched down to her level. Hey, you know what? What? Sophie sniffled. These are the best cookies I've had in a week. Because you haven't had cookies in a week. Exactly. Which makes these the best. Elena smiled. And you know what else? What? I haven't baked anything in years, so the fact that you tried something and made a mess and didn't give up, that's braver than I've been in a long time. Sophie wiped her eyes. Really? Really? So they're good? They're brave cookies. Sophie giggled. Crisis averted. That night, after the kids were in bed, Elena found Mason in his study. He was surrounded by paperwork, glasses slipping down his nose. Can I come in? He looked up. Of course. Elena sat in the chair across from his desk. I wanted to say thank you for the lawyer thing. You already said thank you. I know, but I mean it. Mason took off his glasses. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you marry him? The question should have felt invasive. Somehow it didn't. David? Yeah. Elena thought about it. Because he was safe, she said finally. Or I thought he was. He had a good job, a nice house, a plan for everything. After my parents' messy divorce and my sister's drama, I wanted stability. And I convinced myself that stability was the same as love. It's not. I know that now. Mason was quiet for a moment. Caroline and I fought constantly, he said, about money, about work, about whether to have kids. We were terrible at communicating, but we loved each other, even when we were awful at showing it. What changed? She got sick. Mason's voice went rough. Breast cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. She had 6 months. I'm so sorry. We decided to foster during her treatment. She said if she was dying, she wanted to do something that mattered, so we brought Mara home. Then Ethan. Caroline died 2 weeks before Sophie's adoption was finalized. Elena's heart broke. That's why you kept them. I kept them because they were mine. Mason's eyes were fierce. Blood doesn't make family, choice does. David never understood that. David's an idiot. Elena laughed despite herself. Ethan said the same thing. Ethan's smarter than he looks. They sat in comfortable silence. I've been thinking about your offer, Elena said. About staying. Mason straightened. And? I want to, but I need to contribute something, not just exist here. You already contribute, I mean financially or practically. Something that feels less like charity. Mason considered this. What if you managed the household, he said. Officially, I'd pay you a salary. You'd coordinate schedules, handle the kids' appointments, manage the staff, deal with school stuff. Everything I'm currently doing badly while trying to run a company. Like a house manager. Like family support. Mason leaned forward. I'm not looking for an employee, Elena. I'm looking for someone who actually cares about making this chaos work. That's not a normal job description. This isn't a normal family. Elena thought about Sophie's burnt cookies, Mara's tears, Ethan's blunt observations, Mason's tired eyes. Okay, she said. Okay? I'll stay, officially. Mason smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen from him. Good. The next morning, Mason's lawyer called. Elena spent an hour on the phone going through her divorce settlement. David was trying to claim she owed him money for emotional damages. The lawyer laughed. He can claim whatever he wants. Doesn't mean a judge will give it to him. What do I do? Nothing. I'll handle it. But Elena? Yes? Document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. Men like your ex don't stop at one attempt. The lawyer was right. David called that afternoon. Elena almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. What do you want? That's how you greet your husband? Ex-husband. The divorce isn't final yet. It will be. David's voice turned cold. I need you to sign some additional paperwork. The house appraisal came in higher than expected. So? So I'm entitled to half the appreciation value during our marriage. Elena almost laughed. You kicked me out. That's not how the law works. My lawyer disagrees. Silence. Your lawyer. David's tone changed. You can't afford a lawyer. Apparently I can. Where are you getting money, Elena? None of your business. It is my business if you're hiding assets. I don't have assets. I have exactly $8 and a borrowed phone charger. Then who's paying for your lawyer? Elena smiled. A friend. Bullshit. You don't have friends. The words should have hurt. They didn't, because they weren't true anymore. Sign the settlement as written, Elena said calmly. Or don't. Either way, I'm done negotiating with you. She hung up. Her hands were shaking, but she felt powerful. Mason found her in the kitchen 20 minutes later. You okay? I heard you on the phone. I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. Yeah? I just told David to go to hell. Mason grinned. How'd that feel? Amazing. Good. You should do it more often. The weekend brought chaos. Sophie had a birthday party to attend. Ethan needed new cleats for spring soccer. Mara wanted to go to an art supply store across town. Elena coordinated it all. She drove Sophie to the party and stayed to make sure she was comfortable. Took Ethan to 3 different sporting goods stores to find the right cleats. Spent 2 hours with Mara in the art store, listening to her explain different types of charcoal. By the time they got home, Elena was exhausted, but happy. Mason was in the kitchen making dinner. How'd it go? He asked. Good. Sophie made a friend. Ethan found cleats. Mara bought enough art supplies to open her own store. Sounds expensive. Your credit card survived. Mason laughed. I'm less worried about my credit card than I am about where she's going to put all that stuff. Her room, probably on the floor. Of course. They worked together to finish dinner. It felt natural, easy, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Over pasta, Sophie announced, I invited my new friend Zoe over next weekend. That's great, sweetheart, Mason said. Elena said it was okay. Mason glanced at Elena. She shrugged. I checked the calendar first. See? Sophie said triumphantly. Elena knows the calendar. Elena knows everything, Ethan said. Not everything, Elena protested. More than Dad. Hey, Mason objected. It's true. You forgot my orthodontist appointment last week. I didn't forget. I had a board meeting. Elena remembered. Mason sighed. Yes, Elena remembered. Mara spoke up quietly. The anniversary is tomorrow. The table went silent. Mason's expression shifted. I know, sweetheart. Are we doing the thing? If you want to. What thing? Elena asked quietly. We go to Mom's favorite place, Ethan explained. The botanical gardens. And we bring flowers and talk about her. It's stupid, Mara muttered. It's not stupid, Mason said firmly. It feels stupid. You don't have to come. Yes, I do. No, you don't. I'm not letting you and Ethan and Sophie go without me. Then come. But don't call it stupid. Mara pushed her pasta around. Elena reached over and squeezed her hand. It's okay to not want to go, she said quietly. And it's okay to go anyway. Mara's eyes filled. I hate this. I know. The next day was gray and cold. Everyone moved slowly through morning routines. Elena made breakfast. Nobody ate much. Mason appeared in a suit, then changed into jeans and a sweater. The kids dressed in silence. You don't have to come, Mason said to Elena. This is family. I'd like to, Elena interrupted. If that's okay. Mason looked at his kids. Sophie nodded immediately. Ethan shrugged. Sure. Mara met Elena's eyes. Okay. They drove to the gardens in silence. It was the first time Elena had seen Mason look truly vulnerable. He carried a bouquet of white roses, Caroline's favorite. They walked through the winter gardens until they reached a small memorial bench with Caroline's name on a plaque. Mason sat. The kids gathered around. Elena hung back, giving them space. Hey, Mom, Mason said quietly. And then he started talking about the kids' accomplishments, Sophie's reading progress, Ethan's soccer goals, Mara's latest art piece. The kids added their own updates. It was heartbreaking and beautiful. When they finished, Mara stood abruptly and walked away. Elena followed. She found Mara sitting on a bench crying. I'm sorry, Mara gasped. You don't have to apologize. I miss her so much. I know. And I hate that Sophie barely remembers her. And I hate that I'm forgetting things, like her laugh, and how she smelled, and Elena pulled Mara into a hug. The girl collapsed against her. It's not fair, Mara sobbed. No, it's not. Why did she have to die? I don't know. They sat like that until Mara's tears slowed. I'm glad you're here, Mara whispered. Elena's heart cracked open. Me too. When they returned to the others, Mason looked relieved. On the drive home, Sophie fell asleep on Elena's shoulder. Ethan stared out the window. Mara held Elena's hand. That night, after the kids were in bed, Mason found Elena on the back patio. Thank you, he said, for today. I didn't do anything. You were there. That's everything. Elena wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. Your kids are incredible. They are. Mason stood beside her. And they're getting attached to you. I'm getting attached to them. Elena, I know what you're going to say. Don't get too comfortable. This isn't permanent. I should keep my distance. Actually, Mason said quietly, I was going to say the opposite. Elena looked at him. What? Stop trying to keep your distance. Mason's voice was rough. Stop acting like you're just passing through. You're part of this family now, whether you planned it or not. Mason, I mean it. The kids need you. I need you. He paused. And I think maybe you need us too. Elena felt tears on her cheeks. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. Mason smiled slightly. But we'll figure it out. He went back inside. Elena stood in the cold for a long time, thinking about families and choices, and the strange way life could break you open just to fill you with something better. Spring arrived slowly, melting the last of the winter snow and bringing with it a fragile sense of possibility. Elena had been living with the Carters for 3 months now, and the arrangement that was supposed to be temporary had settled into something that felt permanent, though nobody said it out loud. She enrolled in online classes at the community college, determined to finish the degree she'd abandoned when David convinced her she didn't need it. Business administration with a minor in psychology. Practical. Useful. Something that was hers. Mason had insisted on paying her tuition. They'd fought about it for 2 days before Elena finally gave in, but only after he agreed to deduct it from her salary in small increments. She needed to feel like she was earning it, not just accepting handouts. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met, Mason had said, exasperated. Says the man who argued with me for 40 minutes about grocery budgets. That's different. You were trying to use your own money. It is my money. You pay me. To manage the household, not to buy groceries. Groceries are part of the household. Elena. Mason. Sophie had walked in during that particular argument, took one look at both of them, and announced, You fight like married people. They'd both gone silent. Sophie had grabbed a juice box and left, completely unaware of the bomb she'd just dropped. Now, standing in the kitchen on a Tuesday morning, Elena tried not to think about that comment too much. Tried not to notice the way Mason's hand brushed hers when he handed her coffee. Tried not to read into the fact that he'd rearranged his entire work schedule so he could be home for dinner most nights. Big day today, Mason said, scrolling through his phone. Ethan's science fair? And Mara's art show. And Sophie has that field trip. Elena checked her color-coded calendar on the wall. I've got Sophie's field trip. You're covering the science fair, and we're both going to Mara's show tonight. When did we become people who need color-coded calendars? When you adopted 3 kids with completely different schedules. Fair point. Mason set down his phone. Elena? Yeah? Have you thought any more about what you want to do, long-term? The question had been coming up more frequently lately. Elena poured herself cereal, buying time. I'm still figuring it out. You've been figuring it out for 3 months. And I'm wondering if maybe you're avoiding the answer. Elena bristled. I'm not avoiding anything. I'm trying to build a foundation before I make major decisions. That's very rational. Why do you sound skeptical? Because you've been using rationality as a shield since you got here. Mason leaned against the counter. At some point, you have to stop planning and start living. This from the man who plans his daily schedule down to 15-minute increments. That's work. This is different. How? Mason opened his mouth, closed it. I don't know, he admitted, but it is. Before Elena could respond, thundering footsteps announced the arrival of all 3 kids. Elena! Sophie burst in wearing mismatched socks and an inside-out shirt. I can't find my permission slip. Kitchen drawer. I signed it yesterday. Oh. Sophie deflated slightly. Thanks. Ethan appeared next, holding his science fair project like it was a bomb. Do you think this is good enough? Elena studied the carefully constructed volcano. It's perfect. It's basic. Everyone does volcanoes. Not everyone does them well. Yours actually works. That's the bare minimum. Ethan, Mason's voice held a warning. Your project is great. You have to say that. You're my dad. I don't have to say anything, but I'm saying it because it's true. Ethan didn't look convinced, but he stopped arguing. Mara drifted in last, headphones on, lost in her own world. Mason tapped her shoulder. She pulled off the headphones. What? Good morning to you too. Morning. Mara grabbed an apple. Are you actually coming tonight? To your art show? Yes. You said that last time, and then had an emergency meeting. Mason's jaw tightened. That was once, and it actually was an emergency. Sure. Mara, I'm just saying, don't promise if you can't follow through. She left before Mason could respond. Elena watched the frustration cross his face. She doesn't mean it, she said quietly. Yes, she does. Okay, she does. But only because she's scared you'll disappoint her. I disappointed her once. Once is all it takes when you've already been abandoned. Elena rinsed her bowl. Her mom died. Her biological parents gave her up. Every adult in her life has left somehow. So when you miss something, even with a good reason, she hears, "You're not important enough." Mason was quiet for a long moment. How do I fix that? Show up tonight and keep showing up, consistently, until she believes you're not going anywhere. That simple? That hard. The morning passed in controlled chaos. Elena drove Sophie to school for her field trip to the aquarium, stayed to help chaperone because the teacher was short volunteers, and spent 3 hours explaining starfish to overexcited 6-year-olds. Sophie held her hand the entire time. This is the best day ever, Sophie announced, pressing her face against the glass to watch jellyfish drift by. Better than your birthday? Way better. Birthdays you expect to be good. This is surprise good. Elena smiled. Surprise good is the best kind. Yeah, Sophie looked up at her. Like when you came to live with us. That was surprise good. Elena's throat tightened. You think so? Duh. Before you came, Daddy was always tired, and Mara was always mad, and Ethan was always quiet. Now everyone's better. I don't think I did that. You did. Sophie said it with complete certainty. You make everything less scary. One of the other mothers approached before Elena could respond. Your daughter is adorable, the woman said. Elena froze. Oh, I'm not. She looks just like you, same eyes. Actually, but the woman had already moved on, chasing after her own kid. Sophie was staring up at Elena with wide eyes. She thought you were my mom. Yeah, sorry, I should have corrected her. I don't mind. Sophie's voice was small. Do you? Elena crouched down to Sophie's level. No, sweetheart, I don't mind at all. Sophie threw her arms around Elena's neck. Good, because I kind of think of you like that anyway. Is that okay? Elena hugged her back, blinking away tears. That's more than okay. She texted Mason on the drive back. Sophie just called me her mom in front of other parents. Thought you should know. His response came immediately. How do you feel about that? Elena stared at the question, terrified and happy, mostly terrified. Welcome to parenting. That afternoon, Mason called from the science fair. Ethan won second place, he said. Elena could hear the pride in his voice. That's amazing. He's convinced he should have won first. Of course he is. I'm trying to explain that second place out of 40 projects is incredible. He's not buying it. He says the first place project was just a bigger volcano. Elena laughed. He's not wrong. No, but he's also missing the point. Mason sighed. Can you talk to him when we get home? He actually listens to you. He listens to you too. Elena? Fine. I'll talk to him. When they got home, Elena found Ethan in his room glaring at his second place ribbon. Hey, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Elena sat on his floor. Want to talk about something else? Like what? I don't know. School. Friends? That book you've been reading? Ethan was quiet for a minute. Then, why do you stay here? The question caught Elena off guard. What do you mean? I mean, you could leave, get your own place. You have a job now, sort of. So why do you stay? Elena chose her words carefully. Because I like being here. That's it? Is there supposed to be more? Ethan picked at his bedspread. Most people leave eventually. Foster's parents, social workers, teachers. They all say they care, but then they move on. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan. You don't know that. You're right. I don't know what the future holds. But I know I'm not planning to leave. Plans change. Sometimes, but not this one. Ethan finally looked at her. Promise? Elena held out her pinky. Promise. He hooked his pinky with hers. Okay, he said quietly. I believe you. Good. Now, about that ribbon. I don't want to talk about it. Ethan, second place is, I know what it is. It's not first. It's better than third. That's what Dad said. Because it's true. Ethan flopped back on his bed. I just wanted to win something, for once. You win things all the time. Like what? Like being a good brother, being kind, being brave enough to keep trying even when things are hard. Those aren't real wins. They're the realest ones there are. Ethan was quiet. Then, you're weird. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I'm choosing to take it as one. He almost smiled. That evening, they all piled into the SUV for Mara's art show. The high school gallery was packed with parents, students, and teachers. Mara's work hung in the back corner, a series of charcoal drawings that made Elena's breath catch. They were portraits of Caroline. Different ages, different expressions, all from memory. I didn't know she was working on these, Mason said quietly. She's been drawing in her room for months, Ethan said. She wouldn't let anyone see. They approached slowly. Mara stood beside her work, arms crossed, defensive. Hey, Mason said. Hey, these are beautiful. Mara shrugged. They're okay. They're more than okay. Mason's voice was thick. They're her, exactly her. Some of them are blurry. I couldn't remember the details. The ones you remember are perfect. Mara's eyes were wet. You think she'd like them? I think she'd love them. A teacher approached. You must be Mara's father. These pieces are extraordinary. She has real talent. Mason nodded, not taking his eyes off the drawings. She gets it from her mother. The teacher smiled and moved on. Mara looked at Elena. What do you think? Elena studied the drawings, the careful lines, the obvious love in every stroke. I think you're keeping her alive, she said quietly, in the best possible way. Mara's face crumpled. Mason pulled her into a hug. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. Sophie tugged on Elena's hand. Why is everyone crying? Because sometimes beautiful things make us cry. That's weird. Yeah, it kind of is. They stayed until the gallery closed, looking at every piece of student work, but kept coming back to Mara's corner. On the drive home, Mara fell asleep against the window. She's going to be okay, Elena said quietly. Mason glanced at her. You think? I know, she's processing it, creating something from the pain. That's healing. You sound like Dr. Martinez. I've been reading her recommended books. Why? Elena shrugged. I wanted to understand them better. Your kids. They're lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one. Mason reached over and squeezed her hand. Neither of them let go for the rest of the drive. The next week brought unexpected chaos. Elena's divorce was finalized. She sat in Mason's lawyer's office, signing the final papers, feeling nothing. David got the house. She got her freedom. It seemed like a fair trade. You sure you don't want to fight for more? The lawyer asked. I'm sure, I just want it done. Okay, but if he contacts you again, he won't. The lawyer looked skeptical but didn't argue. Elena walked out of the office feeling lighter than she had in years. No more marriage, no more pretending, no more trying to be someone she wasn't. She called Mason from the parking lot. It's done. How are you feeling? Free? Good. That's good. A pause. You want to celebrate? Celebrate a divorce? Celebrate freedom. Elena smiled. What did you have in mind? Dinner. Just us. The kids are having a sleepover at Ethan's friend's house.